If you were shocked by these images from under the bridge in Del Rio, Texas, get used to it because the border surge is just getting started. Panama is warning up to 60,000 mostly Haitian migrants are heading north. That's double the number that we saw cross into Del Rio earlier this month. Making matters worse, the Department of Homeland Security is reportedly preparing for a record surge at the border in October. Jesse, I wonder why. The slogan's come on down.
That's right, and I heard the Panamanian woman say that we warned Joe Biden months ago that caravans were coming, and Joe didn't listen. Does that sound familiar to you guys? He's warned about Afghanistan, warned about inflation. Manchin warned him about what his top dollar number was in July. What does he do all day? He sits in a soft chair in Delaware and lets Susan Rice run the country. If you think you can turn Texas blue, you have a generation to do it. That's the goal, but it's going deep red in the short term. Poll came out. Texas Hispanics. He's at like 30% approval with Texas Hispanics. Only 25% of Texas Hispanics support what Joe Biden's doing on the border right now. Remain in Mexico policy is such a gift Trump gave this guy, and Joe's just spitting on it. Let them stay in Mexico and apply for asylum there. We have so much leverage over our southern neighbors. What do we do? Hundreds of billions of trade each year with Mexico. We protect their security, Monroe Doctrine. And how about some vaccine diplomacy? If I was Joe Biden, this is what I'd do. I'd say, you're a country, what do they have, about 130 million people in Mexico? We just gave them 1 million COVID shots. Joe Biden just gave them 1 million. I'd dangle about 20 million more shots over Mexico City. I'd say, we do this for you guys. All you have to do is stop the caravans. Why doesn't he think of that?
It's not
thinking about much. Just? Why didn't he think of that?
I think that,
if I can think of it, surely Joe can.
I believe that for sure. And it's interesting. There's a meeting next week on the 8th, I believe. Blinken, Mayorkas, and Merrick Garland are all heading down to Mexico City to have a chat about what's going on. And it'll be interesting to see what the news that comes out of there. I was reading an article that said, you know, we're not sure if they'll talk about immigration. They're going to be talking about immigration and what they can do. And we can't just tell Mexico to keep everybody. There have to be incentives to do that, and we have to broker some sort of new deal that is going to work. Right now, the Biden administration is in court still over the Remain in Mexico policy, which actually came out of effect even during the Trump years because of the COVID-19 pandemic, because they didn't want people just freely crossing or hanging out in Mexico, frankly, with the disease. But it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that meeting.
Chat. A chat's going to solve it. Meantime, you want to talk about the demonization of Border Patrol, demonization of Border Patrol on horseback with these hideous lies. What does that do to the enforcement? It certainly discourages anybody from joining the patrol, and it puts people back on their heels, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being in FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and we were with Border Patrol. They're usually the biggest constituency down there. And, you know, on the weekends when you're off, you just hang out at the pool and you talk. And they were just great guys and women who did it. And you think to yourself, like, why would you do this anymore? I don't understand. Like, we don't have a border. Can we just please, I mean, stop this silliness that there's a southern border? What is a border? Do you understand the definition of a border? It's a delineation point between two land masses. Here's our country, here's yours. So if the theory is, well, you can kind of walk back and forth however you want. And by the way, when you come in, we'll admit you in and we'll give you benefits as well. Then why are you even saying we have a border? You could call it a unicountry, you could call it a landmass, but the border's not designed to be a suggestion. And again, like to the Democrats on this, I get tired of this whole, like, the Sergeant Schultz, I don't know nothing, I don't see nothing. So the highest numbers we had under President Trump of border encounters were about 60,000. I think their highest ever was 100,000. We've had about 180 to 200,000 a month under Obama. The Democrats are like, oh my gosh. Like Jesse said, what the hell happened? Gee, I don't know. We stopped building the wall. We stopped the Remain in Mexico. And we told everybody to come here. Like, Democrats aren't dumb. Like, you think they don't know this? This is clearly intentional, and we should stop pretending it isn't.
It is.
You know?
Well, it adds, and speaking of which, the warning to Mayorkas was about 350 to 400,000 migrants possibly crossing the border in October.
Wow.
That's the
double what they're getting.
Exactly. I have a hard time, Martha, organizing a small family gathering to go to dinner. Dozen people is just undoable, unfeasible to go out to a restaurant. How is it that these tens of thousands of people managing to make their way from all of these countries in such organized fashion, making it into the United States?
I mean, because now's the time. You know, most of them have been in these countries for 2 or 3 years. So they've decided that now is the time. And they look at what happens. They hear what Mayorkas says, that the border's closed, but they don't need to listen to that because they see what they see with their own eyes. And that is that their relatives and people that they know are getting in. And who can blame them for wanting to come? But the fact of the matter is that Joe Biden said during the campaign, you know, we could, in a heartbeat, we could take 2 million. Our numbers are too low in terms of who we're taking in. So the strategy has been quite clear, and that is to allow people to come. But unfortunately for them, we had a drone at the southern border. And we had images that were captured by that drone that started to change people's opinions. And that is why, and I think Jesse brings up a great point, what's happening in Texas is something that the rest of the country needs to watch very closely. There are 3 very contested congressional races down on the border in Texas, currently held by Democrats. When you look at Hispanic voters who are increasingly wanting to elect a Republican or someone who's going to take the border seriously, you have a very interesting trend. The last election, President Trump got more Hispanic votes than the prior elections. And in that election, he got more than previous Republicans had before. So watch these trends, because this is not something that is popular with voters that have been typically Democrat voters.
And talking about incentives, illegal immigrants can get more than $15,000 from
So
New
why
York
wouldn't you come?
in COVID relief.
I would come.
15 grand.
It's a better place to live. There's more jobs, and you get free money and health care. So why wouldn't you come?
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.